Hello students, welcome to the World of Biology through Jaguar classes. In today's class, I will continue with the chapter 6 Life Processes part 4. In earlier parts, we have already discussed about the nutrition and respiration process. In this part, I will focus on transportation in humans and transportation in plants as well as excretion in humans and different ways of excretion in plants. After today's class, you will be able to define process of transportation and excretion in living beings. You will also be able to explain and describe different parts of circulatory system and excretory system in humans with their structure and function. You will also be able to differentiate between xylem and phloem tissues with reference to their function in plants, and you will also able to know about double circulation and urine formation process in humans, and you can list out various ways of excretion in plants. The skills that you will able to learn are the comprehension skills, with the help of which you will be able to compare the process of transportation in animals and plants, as well as you will be able to compare the process of excretion in plants and animals. You will also be use your analytical skill by understanding and solving various high order thinking questions related with the facts and concept related with today's class. In this slide, first of all, we will talk about the transport system in humans, which is important for the process of transportation. As you know that for the transportation process, there is a system known as circulatory system, which is the main transport system in human body, and it consists of three important parts: heart, which is an organ which pumps blood around the body, and blood is the important component of that circulatory system or transport system, which is a liquid connective tissue which help in transportation of materials. And side by side there is a network of blood vessels, which are tube like structures, carry the blood all around the body. In this image you can see that this is the main important organ of our transport system. And now move to the next slide. Here you can see that different components of blood and lymphatic system, which are the two important systems, helps in our transportation process. Here in this chart or table you can see that blood, which is a fluid connective tissue, have two important components: the solid component of blood known as blood corpuscles, in which three types of cells are coming. One is RBCs, red blood corpuscles, and they carry respiratory gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide all around the body. And it contains HB, hemoglobin, which is actually a respiratory pigment which gives the red color to our blood as well as acting as oxygen carrier. The another component are the WBCs, which provide body defense by engulfing the germs and producing antibodies. And the third important components in this solid part, that is blood platelets, which are also a type of cell which helps in blood clotting or blood coagulation. And the liquid component of the blood is plasma, which is a yellow color fluid contain 90% water and 10% organic substances like plasma proteins albumin, globulin proteins, and inorganic mineral ions. One more system is also helping transportation of certain elements in our body, and it is the part of our immune system also, that is the lymphatic system. Its functions are transport clean fluid back to the blood, and it drains excess fluid from the tissue. That's why it is also known as tissue fluid. And it removes debris from the cells of the body and transports fats from digestive system. Now come to the next slide. Here in this you can see that how the process of transportation in humans is taking place. As we know that circulation of blood is going through the heart, and this heart is one of the important organ acting as a pump in our body to transport the blood as a medium, and through that medium the passage in which it is moving, that these are arteries and veins and capillaries, and how the process of that transportation is taking place in our body in a very brief manner you can understand with the help of this flow chart. Here the blood from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava comes in the right atrium first, and from here with the help of tricuspid valve, when it opens it comes into the right ventricle, and from here it moves to the pulmonary artery, and then it moves to the lungs, and where exchange of gases will take place, and from this blood carbon dioxide get inside our lungs, and from the lungs that blood takes the oxygen, and then it comes back to our heart in the left atrium, and through left atrium it moves to left ventricle, and then through the main aorta it get circulated or distributed in rest of the body, that you will see in later part of today's class with the help of different videos to understand the concept in a well manner. Now come to the next part. Here we are talking about transportation in plants. Means the process of transportation in plants basically depends upon the two important tissues known as xylem and phloem. Xylem tissue conducts water, and xylem cells are thick, hard, dead, forms water channel systems, and water is carried against gravity by the negative pressure that builds up through the process of transpiration, which is the evaporation of moisture in leaves, and in that way a transpiration pull create an ascent of sap in the xylem vessels, and in that way the whole through the whole length of the plant the water moves up in the upward direction. Now you can see here water absorbed by the root hairs, then through the capillary mechanism with the help of tube like component of the xylem, which are known as vessels. There is a suction pressure develops due to the transpiration pull, and that water is sucked in upward direction like the flute is sucked by the straws. In that way these vessels are acting, and loss of water, that is by the transpiration process, that created a suction pressure which helps in absorption of water and minerals from the root, and then with the help of that suction pressure the upward pull of water and minerals develop, which is known as ascent of sap, and in that way water is transported from roots to the upper part of the body. And here in phloem vessels the movement of molecules taking place in both the direction. This is the unidirectional transport system in xylem vessel, but in phloem the important minerals which are formed by the process of photosynthesis, which are known as photosynthates, they get transported from upper part to the lower part also, and sometimes when requirement is there, from lower part to upper part also the movement of mineral is going on. Now come to the next part of this, that is excretion. The another process after transportation we are talking and explaining in today's class is about excretion. What is excretion exactly? It is the biological process which involved in the removal of harmful waste from the body, and here again an important system is working in our body for the excretion process known as excretory system, and we will talk about this system. Now, how the excretion in human beings is going on? There are the here are the important points or important steps of the excretion in our body. The excretory system of human beings includes a pair of kidneys, a pair of ureter, a urinary bladder, and urethra. Urine produced in the kidneys passes through the ureters into the urinary bladder, where it is stored until it is released through the urethra. Urine is made to filter out nitrogenous waste such as urea or uric acid from the blood, and basically out of the different excretory products in our body, 75% of the excretory products are nitrogenous waste. To remove these nitrogenous waste, that special excretory system is working in our body. Capillary cluster in the kidney is associated with the cup shaped end of the tube that collects the filtered urine, and each kidney has large number of these filtration unit called nephrons, and that cup shaped structure is known as Bowman's capsule that you will see in diagram of the nephron. Now in excretion process, some substances in the initial filtrate such as glucose, amino acid, salts and major amount of water are reabsorbed after the first part of the filtration. And this step of the urine formation is known as reabsorption process. In first part we have seen that ultrafiltration is going on, and then in second phase reabsorption is going on, where important substances from the filtrate get again reabsorbed by the capillary network, and then urine forming in each kidney eventually enters a long tube in concentrated form, the ureter, which connects the kidneys with the urinary bladder, and urine is stored in the urinary bladder until the pressure of the expanded bladder leads to the urge to pass it out through the urethra, and that urge of urination is known as micturition. Now here in this slide you can see the detailed structure of the nephron, which is known as excretory unit of the kidney, or it is known as the structural and functional unit of our excretory system. Here in this diagram you can see that this is the cup like structure which are of a nephron known as Bowman's capsule. Here a capillary network through which the ultrafiltration is going on, and in this convoluted part, tubular portion of the nephron, the filtrate is coming, and during that movement of filtrate from here till here, the capillary network, which is shown here, known as vasa recta, it reabsorb all the important minerals from it, and then in concentrated form, the urine get collected here in collecting duct, and these collecting ducts of millions of nephron get release their urine in the ureter, and from the ureter it comes into the urinary bladder, and through urethra it release out, and in that way excretory waste, which are nitrogenous waste, are eliminated from our body in the form of urine. Here it is the magnified structure of a nephron which are present inside the kidney. Now, how does the excretion take place in plants? In plants also process of excretion is going on, but there is not any excretory system like in us present in them. There are different ways by which they are releasing their waste. For example, one of the ways is plants get rid of excess water by transpiration, and many plants waste products are stored in cellular vacuoles. And waste products may be stored in the leaves that fall off, and with their falling off, that excretory waste also get released from the body or excreted out from the plant body. And other waste products are stored as resins and gums in old xylem, which are releasing from the plant time to time. And plants also excrete some of the waste substances into the soil around them, and in that way, they are releasing their excretory waste outside the plant body. With that, we have learned the basic concept or basic facts or key points related with the transportation and excretion in animals and plants. Now, come to know and understand these facts with the help of certain videos here, which will make you clear about these two important processes. Understand the concept of transportation and excretion in plants and animals with the help of these presentation and videos. First of all, yes, we will start with this presentation. Here we will see that what is the need of transport inside our body. With the help of this presentation or media presentation, you will able to see that how the process of transport is important for all of us.
Imagine a strike or a Bandh declared in the city. No trains, no buses, no cars. The entire city comes to a standstill, isn't it? How will you travel from one place to another? How will the essential commodities reach people? The entire city life gets disrupted. Well, just as the city requires a well-developed transport system to help people carry on with their daily activities, our body too needs a system that ensures continuous supply of essential substances in and out of our body. Ever wondered who is responsible for the supply of these substances to various parts of the body? You guessed it right. It is the transport system in the body that plays an important role. The transport system in the body is responsible for the supply of various substances to and from the various parts of the body.
Now, how?
All living organisms, including human beings, need a transport system to transport nutrients such as amino acids and electrolytes, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and blood cells to and from the cells in the body. It is vital that the nutrients and gases reach each and every cell of the body. This is required to ensure the proper functioning of the body, its growth and development. Various body systems, such as the digestive system, the respiratory system, the excretory system, and the endocrine system, are dependent on the transport system for their proper functioning. Click each image to learn more about the need for transport inside the body.
Now see that for digestive system, how transport is
In the
required.
digestive system, The nutrients absorbed after digestion are required to be transported to the cells for metabolism and growth of the body.
And in endocrine system, how this transportation helps?
In the endocrine system, the hormones secreted are required to be transported throughout the body to perform their respective functions.
And now see how the process of respiration depend on
In the
transportation.
respiratory system, the oxygen absorbed in the lungs need to be carried to all parts of the body. Similarly, carbon dioxide from all body cells is transported to the lungs to be exhaled from the body.
And in our excretory system, how does transportation helps?
In the excretory system, excess water, salts, and nitrogenous wastes such as urea are required to be collected from different parts of the body and transported to the excretory system. These wastes are then removed from the body.
Now in this way you have seen that how the on transport system different other system of our body depends.
In unicellular organisms, transport of substances takes place by diffusion since they have a large surface area compared to their volume. However, in large multicellular organisms, with the increase in its size and complexity, the surface area to volume ratio decreases and the quantity of substances to be transported increases. In such cases, diffusion becomes inadequate and there arises a need for a well-developed transport system to ensure proper movement of substances to and from different parts of the body. In humans, the transport of substances is accomplished by two fluids, the blood and the lymph. The transport system is also known as the circulatory system, comprising of the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system.
Now see that
Here is a
summary.
quick recap of what we have learned.
Here you can see that in this summary all living organisms, including human beings, need a transport system to transport nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and blood cells. Various body systems, such as the digestive system, respiratory system, and the excretory system, and endocrine system, dependent on the transport system for their proper functioning. In unicellular organisms, the transport of substances is possible by the diffusion. However, in large multicellular organisms, a well developed transport system is required. And blood and lymph are the two fluids or fluid connective tissue through which transport of substances takes place in humans. The transport system is also known as the circulatory system, which comprising of the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system that we have learned from this presentation. And now come to know more about the other parts of transportation in humans. Come to the next presentation. Now here we will learn about the circulatory system in our body.
In human beings, the circulatory system includes the heart and the blood vessels or arteries, veins, and capillaries. The heart pumps oxygenated blood to all parts of the body and deoxygenated blood to the lungs. The heart has 4 chambers: the right atrium, the left atrium, the right ventricle, and the left ventricle. Each of these chambers contract so that blood moves from one chamber to the next. Deoxygenated blood from the body flows into the right atrium through the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. From here, the blood flows into the right ventricle, which then pumps it into the lungs via the pulmonary artery. The lungs oxygenate the blood, which then flows into the left atrium of the heart via the pulmonary veins. The left atrium contracts and the blood enters the left ventricle. The left ventricle is the most muscular chamber of the heart, as it must pump blood to all parts of the body. When the left ventricle contracts, it pumps the oxygenated blood to the body via the aorta.
The pulmonary artery is the only artery in the body.
Well, now that you have seen how blood circulates, you must be wondering how the heart regulates the flow of blood. Let's check this out. The heart has 4 valves that prevent backflow of blood within the heart. The tricuspid valve allows blood to flow only from the right atrium into the right ventricle. The flow of blood from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery is controlled by the pulmonary valve. The mitral valve, also known as the bicuspid valve, allows blood to flow from the left atrium into the left ventricle. Finally, the aortic valve controls the flow of blood into the aorta from the left ventricle.
Now, see that?
Let's try a small activity. Trace the sequence of blood flow through the heart by placing the numbers in the correct slots. Start with the flow of deoxygenated blood from the body into the heart.
That you will practice with the help of the diagram, and then we will do that in practice work and come to do about the next part of the circulatory system. That is, here you will be able to see with the help of this 3
Human heart.
functioning.
The
of
heart is located in the center of the chest between the lungs, slightly to the left. The heart is a hollow muscular organ made of strong cardiac muscles. It pumps the blood through the circulatory system with great force. The heart is enclosed in a double-walled sac called the pericardium. The outer wall of the human heart is composed of 3 layers: the outer epicardium, the middle myocardium, and the inner endocardium. The human heart has 4 chambers. The upper, smaller chambers are called auricles or atria. The lower, larger and muscular chambers are called ventricles. A thick wall of muscle called the septum separates the right side and the left side of the heart. There are 4 valves in the heart. The tricuspid valve or right atrioventricular valve is between the right atrium and the right ventricle. The mitral valve, also known as the bicuspid valve or left atrioventricular valve, is between the left atrium and the left ventricle. These 2 valves are attached to the chordae tendineae, which anchor the valves to the papillary muscles in the ventricles. There are 2 semilunar valves present, one in the beginning of the aorta and one in the pulmonary vein. Auricles have thinner walls than the ventricles. The left ventricle has thicker walls than the right ventricle. The right atrium collects deoxygenated blood from the body via superior and inferior vena cava and sends it into the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps it to the lungs. The left atrium collects oxygenated blood from the lungs and sends it to the body via the aorta through the left ventricle. Cardiac cycle. To pump blood, the heart muscles in the auricles and ventricles contract and relax simultaneously. Contraction of heart muscles is called systole, and relaxation is called diastole. A complete systole and diastole of the heart is a single heartbeat or a cardiac cycle. When auricles are in systole, the ventricles are in diastole. Auricular systole. Auricle muscle contracts, tricuspid and mitral valves open. Blood enters the ventricles, auricles relax. Ventricular systole. Tricuspid and mitral valves close, causing the first heart sound, lub. Ventricles contract. Semilunar valves open. Blood enters the arteries, ventricles relax. Semilunar valves close, generating the second heart sound, dub. Summary. The human heart has 4 chambers with 2 superior atria and 2 inferior ventricles. The tricuspid valve is located between right atrium and right ventricle, and the mitral valve is located between the left atrium and left ventricle. Semilunar valves are present in the arteries and veins that leave the heart. Contraction of the heart muscle is called systole and relaxation is called diastole. One complete systole and diastole is called a cardiac cycle.
Now, with that, you will be able to understand the functioning of our heart. Now, come to know the other facts that is related with our circulation or circulatory system, that is about the blood pressure. Now, here you can learn the concept of blood pressure and how this helps.
You may have noticed a doctor wrap an inflatable cuff around the arm of a patient to measure blood pressure. What is blood pressure? The heart works like an extraordinary pump, pushing the blood into the blood vessels. As the blood flows, it exerts force on the walls of the blood vessels. This force is known as blood pressure. During a cardiac cycle, the blood pressure goes up with the ventricular contraction, also known as systole, and goes down with ventricular contraction, also known as diastole. During a systole, the ventricles pump blood into the arteries with an increased force. The pressure exerted is known as systolic pressure. The increased pressure causes the muscular elastic walls of the arteries to stretch. During a diastole, the arteries do not receive blood from the ventricles and they return to their normal diameter. The blood pressure is relatively low and is known as diastolic blood pressure. Blood pressure varies in different blood vessels. It is highest in arteries, declines as the blood flows into the capillaries, and is lowest when the blood reaches the veins. blood pressure is measured by an instrument called sphygmomanometer. It consists of an inflatable cuff that wraps around the upper arm and is connected to an air pump and mercury column. Blood pressure is expressed in millimeters of mercury. The normal blood pressure of a normal person at rest is 120/80. The numerator represents the systolic blood pressure and the denominator denotes the diastolic blood pressure.
Now in modern sphygmomanometer, the mercury column is replaced with a digital monitor, which is modern days instrument for measuring blood pressure.
When the blood pressure of an adult is consistently above the normal blood pressure, the condition is known as hypertension. One common cause of hypertension is the narrowing of arteries due to cholesterol or fat deposits. The arteries become stiff and lose their elasticity, thus increasing the resistance to the flow of blood. Prolonged stress and depression, improper functioning of kidneys, smoking, alcohol consumption, physical inactivity, and obesity can also cause hypertension. Hypertension can be controlled through a low sodium diet, regular exercise, avoiding smoking and alcohol consumption, and appropriate medication. It is advisable for people above the age of 45 to get their blood pressure checked twice a year. A condition abnormally low blood pressure is called hypotension. The heart, brain, and other organs of the body do not get enough blood due to low blood pressure. Dizziness and fainting are common symptoms of hypotension. Severe hypotension can be fatal. Let's summarize what we have learned so far.
Now in this presentation, we have learned about the blood pressure. The force exerted on the blood vessels when it flows through is cause the blood pressure, and normal blood pressure in human beings is 120/80, where this 120 refers to the systolic blood pressure that occurs when arteries receive blood from ventricles, and 80 refers to the diastolic blood pressure that occurs when the arteries do not receive blood from the ventricles. And abnormal blood pressure, uh, in that case there will be two conditions. One is hypertension, which is caused when the blood pressure is consistently above the normal blood pressure, and the another condition, abnormal condition, is hypotension, which is caused due to the abnormally low blood pressure. With that, we have come to know about the concept of blood pressure, which is related with our transportation system. Now come to the next part of transportation, where you will learn about the difference between arteries and veins. Now, what is the basic difference between arteries and veins? These are the two types of blood vessels which are basically responsible for the between arteries and veins with the help of this presentation.
Differences between arteries and veins. The circulatory system consists of blood vessels called arteries and veins that transport blood from and to heart. Arteries carry blood from the heart to different parts of the body. They transport oxygenated blood. However, the pulmonary artery transports deoxygenated blood to the lungs. The walls of arteries are strong, thick, and muscular. The lumen or inner cavity of the artery is narrow and valves are absent. The blood flows under high pressure in the arteries. Arteries branch out to arterioles, which lead to capillaries. Veins carry blood towards the heart. They carry deoxygenated blood. But the pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood from the lungs. The walls of veins are thin. The lumen is wide, with valves to prevent the backflow of blood. The blood flows under low pressure in veins. Veins branch into venules, which further branch to capillaries. Summary: arteries transport blood from the heart to body. Veins transport blood from tissues to heart. Arteries pulsate without valves, whereas veins have valves.
Now, with that, we have completed the transportation in humans and now come to know about the excretion process and how this process of excretion is going on in the humans. Now, try to know about the waste management system and its importance.
The kidneys are the body's primary excretory organs. They filter the blood to remove wastes and regulate the relative concentrations of salt and water in the blood. Let's learn how the kidney functions. The renal artery transports oxygenated blood containing the waste matter to the kidneys. The kidneys filter out the wastes from the blood. The filtered and deoxygenated blood is then transported out of the kidney through the renal vein. Wastes and other unwanted substances are removed as urine, formed during the filtration process. Urine flows from the kidneys through the ureters to the bladder, where it is stored until it is excreted from the body through the urethra. The actual filtering of blood occurs in tiny tubules inside the kidneys called nephrons. Kidneys have about 1 million nephrons. In the nephron, tiny capillaries intertwine with tiny urine-carrying tubules. The nephrons filter wastes in stages. These are ultrafiltration, reabsorption, and secretion. Let's take a closer look at these stages. Blood flows under high pressure from the renal artery to enter the glomerulus, where it is filtered into the Bowman's capsule. During this stage called ultrafiltration, urea, glucose, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, water, and salt are filtered from the blood to form the glomerular filtrate. As the filtrate moves along the tubule, glucose, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, most of the water, and some of the salts are reabsorbed into the blood in the proximal or first convoluted tubule. Water is reabsorbed automatically into the kidney in the loop of Henle, and salts get reabsorbed in the distal convoluted tubule. The solution that reaches the end of the tubule is concentrated urine. Substances such as excess potassium and hydrogen ions and ingested drugs are secreted from the blood capillaries into the tubules to be excreted in the urine. This process is called tubular secretion. The urine formed is transported via the collecting duct into the ureters, which carry it to the bladder where it is stored. It is then removed from the body through the urethra. An adult human passes about 1 to 1.8 liters of urine every day. There are approximately 2 million tubules in both the kidneys. Humans can survive with only one kidney.
These are the basic facts about our excretory system or waste management system in our body. Now, come to know more facts about this system and try to understand. Now, in humans, how the process of excretion is going on. Once more,
Excretory system of humans. The human excretory system, or more specifically, the urinary system, is comprised of the kidneys, the ureters, the urinary bladder, and the urethra. The excretory process begins in the pair of kidneys which are housed just below the ribs in the back of the upper abdominal region and sit on either side of your vertebral column. Although the left kidney is positioned slightly higher than the right, both are identical in their structure and function. In adults, each kidney measures approximately 10 to 13 centimeter long, roughly 4 to 5 inches, and 5 to 7.5 centimeter wide, roughly 2 to 3 inches. The renal artery carries both oxygenated blood from the heart and wastes to the kidneys, entering at the hilus. Once the blood has been filtered, it is returned to circulation through the renal vein. The kidney itself is comprised of an outer cortex and an inner medulla. The medulla is darker in color than the cortex and contains conical structures known as the renal pyramids. The cortex is a lighter colored tissue and includes extensions known as the column of Burton, which are found between the renal pyramids. The renal cortex contains both blood vessels and nephrons, small units that function to filter the blood and remove waste products inside the body. Nephrons are the basic functional units of the kidneys, and there are about 1 million within each kidney. Each nephron includes a glomerulus and a renal tubule. Each glomerulus sits within a cluster of capillaries in a shell-like structure known as the Bowman's capsule, and as a whole, they will serve as the basic filtration unit. Blood enters the glomerulus through an afferent arteriole and leaves through the efferent arteriole. Wastes pass through the glomerulus and into the Bowman's capsule. In the nephrons, fluid flows from the Bowman's capsule into the proximal tubule, then into the loop of Henle, and finally into the distal tubule. It is in these tubules where urine will be concentrated in order to minimize the water loss. From the interior side of the kidneys, two tubes known as ureters descend and open into the bladder, which opens out through urethra. The final fluid from the distal tubule enters the ureters and is collected in the urinary bladder, and from there it is excreted as urine. Summary: the human excretory system is comprised of a pair of kidneys, a pair of ureters, urinary bladder, and urethra. Renal arteries bring waste-filled blood to the kidneys. Nephrons are the functional units of the excretory system. Blood filtration occurs in the glomerulus. The tubules of the nephron concentrate urine to minimize water waste.
With that, we have finished our this chapter, life processes, and I hope that you will be able to understand all the important life processes in a well manner with the help of these presentation. And now we will start in next class our next chapter, control and coordination in humans and plants. And till then, you can complete your assignments and notes related with this chapter with the help of that presentation, and I have already included all the notes in the and assignment in the subscription box. Please go for that subscription box to download it and to study them from the subscription box. Thank you and have a nice day.